hundreds of thousands of federal workers are going without pay as the partial government shutdown drags into day 20. A look at the legal ramifications of President Trump declaring a national emergency to get a border wall. And a CBN News exclusive interview with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. All that and more tonight on Faith Nation. Some federal workers are facing their first missed paychecks during this partial government shutdown. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Amber Strong. Hundreds of thousands of federal workers are going without pay as the partial government shutdown drags on into day 20. CBN News congressional correspondent Abigail Robertson is on Capitol Hill with more on how government agencies are grinding to a halt and how that's trickling downhill.
Well, Amber, this is on track to be the longest government shutdown in history, and federal employees around the country are fed up. Take a look. Rallies in Washington and across the country continued today as federal workers face their first payday with no check.
While some in the public debate say that this is a manufactured crisis on the southern border, I expect the men and women in uniform gathered here and those that might be looking on know the truth of it.
The vice president thanked Customs and Border Patrol agents.
Thank you for staying focused on the mission.
And their families for standing strong.
And the president and I and our entire administration are going to continue to stand strong until we give you the resources and the reforms that you need to accomplish your mission.
But agents tasked with securing the U.S.-Mexico border are not the only Americans affected as this shutdown grinds on.
We tighten our belts. You know, there's some things we don't do that we normally might do, and we just kind of wait it out.
Victims of domestic violence who rely on charities like Hope House in Missouri are in limbo.
It's honestly day by day right now.
With government grant money also halted, employees are committed to keeping transitional housing, civil, legal, and court support services open.
At this point, we're not talking about stopping any services or closing services or laying anybody off.
Questions also surround food stamps covered under federal supplemental nutrition assistance programs, which are handled by a now closed Department of Agriculture.
People are confused and don't know what to expect.
The government has guaranteed those SNAP benefits through February. Kevin Ryan is a social services manager at an Oregon food pantry.
We're extremely worried about it. We care about our clients and what they're going through, and this is going to hit them hard.
Matt Hall, with the Transportation Security Agency for 16 years, knows the drill and likely outcome since this isn't his first shutdown.
It will end. This too shall pass.
Indeed, Amber, this will end someday, but unfortunately it doesn't look like someday soon. Congress is adjourned for the weekend, and we have yet to see a compromise that leadership in both parties say they will agree to reopen the government.
The president declared today in a tweet that the humanitarian crisis on the southern border is, quote, an invasion. The wartime rhetoric comes as President Trump inches closer to declaring a national emergency to ensure funding for a U.S.-Mexico border wall. CBN News White House correspondent Ben Kennedy has more on the president's next move.
We have a country that's being invaded by criminals and by drugs, and we're going to stop it.
Border security took front and center during today's roundtable at the White House.
This is too simple. It's too basic. If they can't do it, I will declare a national emergency. I have the absolute right to do it. It says as clear as you can. Now, what will happen? I'll be sued. It'll be brought to the Ninth Circuit. And maybe, even though the wording is unambiguous, just like with the travel ban, it'll be appealed to the Ninth Circuit, and we'll probably lose there too. and then hopefully we'll win in the Supreme Court.
The Trump administration is reportedly laying groundwork to move money from the Army Corps of Engineers and could mean funds meant for disaster relief from hurricanes and wildfires would go toward the wall.
If we don't make a deal with Congress, most likely I will do that. I would actually say I would.
And Trump added that he has every right to do it.
I can't imagine any reason why not, because I'm allowed to do it. The law is 100% on my side.
President Trump could actually use the National Emergencies Act. It's been around since 1976 or so, and sure, he could technically go down that route.
Democrat leaders show no signs of giving ground as they prepare legal arguments in the event Trump acts on a national emergency. Even some Republicans hope Trump does not trade disaster relief for a border barrier.
I'm not for that idea right now, okay? I mean, I'm for getting back to negotiation.
Congressman Williams represents a district between Fort Worth and San Antonio. His state is still recovering from Hurricane Harvey.
Right now, that would be the last thing I'd want to see happen, is take money away from disaster relief.
Ben Kennedy joins us now from the White House, and Abigail Robertson is back as well. But let me go to Ben first. Ben, is the president willing to declare a national emergency without the support of Republicans in Congress?
Well, Amber, it's clear the GOP is not united behind the president declaring a national emergency. No word if that's going to impact his decision. But as the deadlock stretches on, he's become more vocal about declaring a national emergency at the southern border. Lawmakers and the president remain locked in a bit of a stalemate over the border wall funding to the tune of $5.7 billion. It's a campaign promise that he is not backing down from. Senator Lindsey Graham said Democrats are not working in good faith and gave Trump essentially the green light to declare the emergency and build the wall. But today, Trump backtracked a bit during the roundtable talks. He said, what we're not looking to do right now is national emergency. He added that I'm not going to do it so fast and that he wants Congress to do his job.
Abby, you talked about those federal workers in your report earlier. Is there any relief for them from banks and creditors?
Well, Amber, we are hearing stories of some credit card companies or landlords who are being lenient on federal workers, but I think it's really on a case-by-case basis. We have learned that federal employees are able to file for unemployment, and if they file for that, they are receiving checks but they'll have to pay that money back once their back pay kicks in, once the government reopens, and they are paid for the past 3 or so weeks. They will then have to pay that unemployment money back, but that will provide them some relief in the meantime. And we've also heard a lot of stories of federal employees who are putting their bills on credit cards and hoping that they receive their paychecks before those credit card bills are due. But unfortunately, if they don't get them, they will be on the hook for those credit card fees. And I asked Senator Lankford about this yesterday, and he told me that unfortunately there's nothing that will protect them, and they will just be on the hook for those fees. Take a look.
That's the challenge, is that this will be a real stretch for a lot of families through this, and I have great empathy for those folks. And my great frustration is, as long as we're in a position where for months and months and months, literally the president has said we're going to do border security this year, and we get to the end of the year and the Democrats said, no, we're absolutely going to do nothing on border security, that's a really difficult spot. This is not like this was a surprise to anyone in Washington, D.C. The president said we're going to do border security starting in the summer, and he said we're going to do it in this year. And so there may be people saying they were surprised at the end of the year, but if they weren't listening to what he said all year long.
And they are putting forth various bills in both the House and Senate, one that would protect these workers from eviction, from if they're missing car payments, things like that. But unfortunately, it's all leading to just a lot of extra paperwork for these employees and a lot of headaches, a lot of phone calls. And I'm sure that there's a lot of case-by-case basis where some of these people are really getting hurt that might not ever see relief for some of the financial things that they're left on the hook for during this time period.
Ben, really quickly, I hear faith leaders were involved in those discussions there today.
Yes, Amber, you're right. A couple pastors and reverends were a part of today's roundtable right here behind me at the White House. Now, the president values their input on border security. Earlier this week, Vice President Mike Pence held a conference call with 200 faith leaders to stress the humanitarian side and the drug crisis at the southern border.
Abby, Ben, thank you guys so much.
Thank
As
you.
the president considers whether to declare a national emergency for his wall, questions remain over the legality of such a move. CBN News anchor Jenna Browder spoke with the Heritage Foundation's Hans von Spakovsky and got some answers.
It depends on which money he wants to try to use, whether it's money at DHS or DOD or elsewhere.
So you're saying he can do it? It just depends how.
I think it's likely he can do it, but like I said, as you know, the federal budget is huge, and it all depends on the White House finding money that's already been appropriated, but isn't tied to a specific purpose that he can, through this national emergency declaration, properly use for securing the border.
Do you personally think he should declare a national emergency?
Well, look, I would certainly prefer that this be done through Congress. You know, it's the job of Congress to appropriate the funds, particularly the House of Representatives under our Constitution, that's needed for the federal budget and to accomplish the kind of solutions to public policy problems that we all agree on. But if Congress won't do it, and if the President believes this really is a national emergency, if he believes national security is threatened, well, yeah, he probably needs to consider this. I mean, look, to give you another example, if the United States were attacked by a military force, I don't think people would want to wait for Congress to appropriate the money and give the President the permission for him to respond to that, and that he should wait until Congress acted. I mean, that's why there is a federal law called the National Emergencies Act. So the President can act when he feels it's necessary for either public safety reasons or for national security reasons.
And we are in week 3 of this partial government shutdown.
Right.
President Trump, he thinks he's winning. Democrats, they think they're winning. Hans, how do you see this playing out?
Well, I think it's important for people to understand that 3/4 of the government is not only operating but funded. It's only about 1/4 of the government that is at risk here, including the Department of Homeland Security. It's not that that's a minor problem, but when I hear people talking about, oh, there's a complete government shutdown, that of course is not true. I actually think the President is probably coming out ahead on this, and here's the reason. I think probably most people remember that more than a year ago, the President offered the Democrats a huge compromise. He said that in exchange for funding the wall and border security things that he thought were needed, remember, he agreed that he would provide amnesty and a road to citizenship for over 2 million illegal aliens in the country, a much larger number than the DACA beneficiaries, you know, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals beneficiaries, was only estimated at about 700,000 people. So he offered a huge compromise. He offered citizenship and amnesty, something that a lot of people on the right were criticizing, and yet the Democrats said no to that. I think he's winning this race, this competition, or if you can call it that, this fight, because I think a lot of people have seen, look, he already offered to give the Democrats a lot of what they like in exchange for helping him secure the border, and yet they're saying no.
When we come back, a CBN News exclusive with the Secretary of State. The U.S. has initiated the process of withdrawing from Syria. CBN News Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell spoke to Mike Pompeo about the ramifications of that move when it comes to America's allies and Christians in the region. The U.S. is beginning its withdrawal from Syria, but so far troops are staying put. A Defense Department official says some American equipment is being pulled out. The move adds to confusion over the timeline on bringing U.S. service members home. In a surprise announcement last month, the president said troops would be leaving Syria immediately. But that was walked back this week by his national security advisor, who gave a timetable of months or even years for withdrawal. Currently, about 2,000 Americans are on the ground there in Syria. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo used a Middle East platform to tell the world about the role America plans to play in the region. Following his speech, Pompeo gave CBN News an exclusive interview about why he believes America is back and is a force for good.
Secretary of State Pompeo came to Cairo knowing many allies are concerned about President Trump's decision to pull U.S. troops out of Syria. Pompeo told CBN News the region will see a strong America pick up the foreign policy mantle it's historically held in the Mideast. We interviewed Pompeo at a newly dedicated church built by Egypt for Coptic Christians. You just had a major speech about the Middle East, and 10 years ago another major speech was given here in Cairo. Would it be fair to say that your speech was America is back and it's a force for good?
Absolutely. I want people throughout the Middle East and the world to know that America's involvement in the Middle East is absolutely a force for good. We come here with no intention to oppress or to dominate, but rather to free, to create opportunities for every individual throughout the Middle East to live their life, to have the freedoms that we are all so blessed to have in the United States.
Pompeo's speech came 10 years after then President Obama delivered his blueprint for the Middle East in Cairo.
He told you that the United States and the Muslim world needed, quote, a new beginning, end of quote. The results of these misjudgments have been dire.
The Secretary of State said that President Obama's timid, hesitant, and apologetic policy allowed ISIS, Iran, and other terrorists to thrive.
We learned that when America retreats, chaos often follows. When we neglect our friends, resentment builds. And when we partner with our enemies, they advance.
Pompeo said that all changed as the Trump administration pushed to decimate ISIS, confront Iran, and stand up to Syria's President Assad.
The good news is this: the age of self-inflicted American shame is over, and so are the policies that produce so much needless suffering. Now comes the real new beginning.
Part of that new beginning is forging a global alliance against Iran. One of your themes of the trip is about Iran and the danger to the Middle East. Do you see nations aligning up with the United States against the influence of Iran?
So our team has done good work. We've built an enormous coalition that ranges from Asia to North Africa, certainly to the Middle East, countries from all across the world, understanding that the threat from the Islamic Republic of Iran is real and continuing and ought not to be tolerated.
Another issue is in Syria, as Turkey's President Erdogan is threatening U.S. allies. A few hours ago, you met with leaders in Erbil about the Kurds, and yet there's dangerous talk coming out of Turkey. What's your message to Erdogan if he goes ahead and invades the Kurds?
Well, our message is straightforward. The work that the Kurdish forces did with us alongside in Syria has been important. It took down a caliphate, 99% of the real estate that was held by ISIS. We remember people sitting in cages being burned. It seems like a long time ago, but frankly, it's the good work that the United States did with a big coalition. And we'll work with the Turks to make sure that there's security for them as well, and that the Kurdish people in Syria are indeed protected.
What about the Christians in the region? They have an appeal that they won't be eradicated, that Christianity won't be eradicated. What's your message to those Christians?
That America is with them. Christianity is at the heart of the history of this place here in the Middle East. All you got to do is grab a Bible and read the places and the names. Christians have been central to the Middle East. We want to make sure that they continue to have opportunities and freedom, and for Christian churches to grow alongside churches of other faiths as well. Our message is simple, is that we stand for religious freedom every place American diplomacy is at work.
Secretary Pompeo told us he wanted to pass along a simple but powerful message, that the United States stands for religious freedom every place American diplomacy is at work. There could not have been a better place to deliver it. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Cairo.
For more news and information from the Middle East, be sure to check out CBN News' Jerusalem Dateline, which airs every Friday at 9:30 Eastern on the CBN News channel. And for more info on how to tune in, head to cbnnewschannel.com. Coming up, crisis pregnancy centers across the country tend to focus on women caught in an unplanned pregnancy. But a baby on the way can catch a father off guard as well. Next, one group's work to provide counseling to men facing unplanned fatherhood. Abortion is the core mission of Planned Parenthood. The group's president, Dr. Lena Wynn, acknowledged what pro-life groups have said for years. Wynn was responding on Twitter to a BuzzFeed article stating she wanted to focus on non-abortion health care. She said the headlines, quote, completely misconstrued my vision for Planned Parenthood.
She went on to tweet, "First, our core mission is providing, protecting, and expanding access to abortion and reproductive health care." Her statement cuts against the narrative the abortion provider has repeated for years that just 3% of its services are related to abortion, and the group is all about women's health. Planned Parenthood performs approximately 300,000 abortions per year, which is about 30% of all abortions in the country. Most of nearly 3,000 pregnancy crisis centers across America focus on women caught in an unplanned pregnancy. But one Florida center takes a different approach. As Charlene Aaron explains, that clinic helps expectant dads.
Located next to Florida State University, a women's pregnancy center in Tallahassee addresses the critical needs of unplanned pregnancies in its community. Started in 1985, its main mission is to rescue babies from abortion, offering free pregnancy testing, adoption referrals, and ultrasounds.
80% of our clients will carry their babies to term.
Yet babies aren't the only ones saved here. A women's pregnancy center also has a ministry for men, which encourages fathers to stand in the gap and fight for life, for their children and their families.
We've had men walk in the door and say, "I need help with my girlfriend," or "I've got a situation, I've gotten a girl pregnant and I don't know how to help her," or "My girlfriend just called me, she's driving back from Jacksonville, she tried to have an abortion, she couldn't get it, and I just found out she's pregnant and she wants me to get her an abortion in Tallahassee and I don't know what to do."
In the center's Just for Men program, trained male counselors work one-on-one with men, seeking answers about fatherhood and life.
I've counseled them many times with the girl in the room with us, and it's a woman talking to a man, and I know the impact that it has, but then I'll connect him to the man and I'll see his body language change. I'll see his eyes start looking at the male counselor. He's engaged.
We're just trying to bring to the man an understanding of the value of life and the sanctity of life.
The center also offers an abortion recovery program. Counselor Harold Francis often shares his personal story to help others like him.
My wife and I, when we first got married, we had only been married about 10 months, we did have an abortion.
He received much-needed healing after completing the course, based on biblical principles.
I think that I had asked many times for God's forgiveness for what I had done. It opened it up to me that, you know, there were issues in my life that I hadn't forgiven myself for, which is directly related to the abortion.
That enables him to counsel other men through their pain.
I've had guys tell me in that room things that they have never shared with anybody in their entire life. I'm 69, and there's a young African-American in there that's 19 years old, and at the end of the session, we're both crying and hugging each other.
Dome often sees that healing extend to other family members.
We've had fathers, oh my gosh, go from, we're talking 50-year-old men bringing their 16-year-old daughter here, thinking that abortion was the best thing, and then meeting with a male counselor and coming out of that room saying to his 16-year-old daughter, "Baby girl, we've got this. You don't have to do this. I'm here for you. We're going to make this work."
Practical needs must also be addressed for the soon-to-be dads.
A lot of them are in tough situations financially. They're in between jobs. They're looking for jobs. They haven't been working and they realize I really need to step up my game and actually go out and get a job now. I give them assistance and I try to help them with their job search. I help them with their resumes.
Several men have even come to Christ.
We've had men not even come into the center, but the woman give us permission to call her boyfriend, and the male counselor call the boyfriend, and the boyfriend is kind of going, "Really, you're interested in me? Really, you think my opinion matters? Wow." And then he'll start a conversation, and we've had counselors actually lead them to Jesus on the phone, not expecting it at all, not expecting this phone call to be that kind of moment.
The kind of moment the staff here call nothing short of miraculous. Charlene Aaron, CBN News, Tallahassee, Florida.
That's going to do it for tonight's Faith Nation. But for the latest in breaking news all weekend long, be sure to check out cbnnews.com. We're going to see you bright and early or back on air on Monday. Take care.
I really